We are live. Welcome to another episode of the Air Raid Attack podcast. I'm your host, Michael. Listen to us on iTunes, Google, iHeartRadio, wherever you get your podcast from. Of course, watch us live stream on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, which we are currently live streaming right now. Without further ado, we're going to spend some time talking to Micah Smith, the offensive coordinator for Chadron State College. I'm sure I probably butchered it. Chadron State College, based out of Chadron, Nebraska. Coach, how are you doing, sir?
I'm good. And, yeah, you did butcher it, but that's all right. You're not the first one. It's like Chicago. It's a shattered.
Nice. Yeah, I could probably say it probably 10 times. I would never get it right.
Most people do, man. Most people do.
So, Coach, of course, you know, as always, season's right around the corner. During the live stream, I typed up the schedule so everybody can, of course, see it. Season starts right around the corner. When are you guys reporting to camp?
So we'll start camp. I think our guys check in August 5th or somewhere around there. We let them get in the dorms August 5th. And then we have a day that's kind of for all the compliance stuff and all the paperwork stuff. Then we have a day where we can meet. And then the day after that is where we can finally actually start practice. So it's about, I think, August 9th is our first practice.
Very nice. Hey, I'm sure you're excited along with the rest of the coaches.
Oh, yeah, man. It's been hopefully we can get some normal football this year. So,
amen to that one, of course, you know, with everything that's going on. You know, who knows? Hopefully, I know in my sake, hopefully, you never know. You know, we'll talk 2020 real quick. Of course, you know, it was non-normal for everybody. Everybody went through something last year. But nonetheless, of course, you guys finishing 2-2 in a very, 2020 season, which a lot of people technically don't count 2020 as a season. Kind of walk us through of how it affected you guys and how you guys took it step by step, of course, throughout what season you guys did have.
Yeah, I mean, the main thing was we had to learn, and as being a football coach and playing football my whole life, you kind of understand that, like, you got to go with the flow and everything's always audible ready, and you're ready to, if something bad happens, you go to the next guy or next man up or whatever it is. But we started fall camp late. We didn't start till all the kids were on campus, and about a week after they got on campus, so not really till September. Then we played the abbreviated schedule. We had 6 games scheduled. Only got to play 4, which was a blessing. I think I don't know what the final number was after spring, but the teams that played in the fall, I think there was only 10 Division II teams that actually played games.
Wow.
Yeah, and so we were very fortunate. And now last 2020 was my first year as O coordinator here, and we didn't get a spring. And so that last fall was kind of our spring ball to where we actually got to put in the offense that I run. Got to get guys used to all of my calls and how I do things and how I structure the verbiage. And so it was a blessing for us. We'd like to come out better than 2-2, but we were in every game, played hard. I think we lost one game in overtime, and then one game we were in it striking distance at the end of the game. So we're where we wanted to be. And then the spring came, and we did spring ball early. And then we saved some of our championship segment days, and we jumped into playing some scrimmages late in spring. So for me as a coach, what was kind of hard was what was different, not hard. I enjoyed it. It was tiring, but we had a game plan all year long because we had scrimmages, we had games, and we never kind of got that break that you normally get in there. And so that was kind of a wild one to where usually you get a little bit of time to relax there before spring ball or right after spring ball. Yep. We didn't really get that this year. But that's all right. We take it in stride, and like I said, that spring ball was really good for us. We got every single one of our guys that was eligible to play in those spring scrimmages, got multiple reps that hopefully got them better. And also kind of those guys that maybe aren't cut out to play college football who are questioning, like, why aren't I getting time? Why aren't I getting this? Now they kind of understand that a little bit. So
that's awesome. And, going back to what you have, going back to your first year, I know I've interviewed other coaches kind of, hey, how did you guys adjust? From your first year as offensive coordinator, how did you adjust with the unknown that you guys were facing in 2020?
There's a lot of unknowns.
Yep.
Adjusting with that. One of the things is we went in to play teams who we had zero film on because they had no games
Right.
scheduled. We went into the first two games that we played; those were brand new staffs there, and so we had zero film on them. Which
Wow.
normally they were conference teams, so we'd have been halfway through the year and at least got a couple games on them before we had to play them. And it goes back to that whole our philosophy at Chadron. We're in the middle of nowhere, Nebraska. We're 4.5 hours from Denver, 3 hours from Casper, Wyoming, and then an hour and a half south of Rapid City. So we're kind of we're a ranch community, and we kind of try to make our team take on that persona. Even the kids that come from out of state and whatever, we try to get them to buy into that. Like, it's not about where we're at or what we got. It's about who we have. And so that mentality is the next man up mentality too, goes along with it. And so the unknown was always about, hey, whatever comes next, whether we have to test every week, which we had to test every week, or we had to go to games without guys because they were quarantined or whatever it may be. Hey, we'll make it work because what's best for us, what we felt was best for us, and what our administration felt was best for us, which our administration is awesome, was best was to play games.
Right.
And, try to make it as somewhat normalcy as we possibly could.
That's really neat. And as you mentioned, you're out in the middle of nowhere. I personally never heard of it. And even though I got my grandfather, he was from Royal, Nebraska, which is somewhere around there. I'm not for sure if the town exists anymore, but
it's out there away. It's a little way from us, but it's out there.
Yep, it's out there, and my great grandmother is buried there. One day, maybe I like to, maybe just for the heck of it, go out there. But
hey man, it's easy living.
But headed into 2021, cross fingers, normalcy. What are you guys bringing back talent wise? What's the expectations of course like, and what are you guys expecting for 21?
We feel like we're in a really good spot.
Very nice.
We have our Dalton Holst is our quarterback. He's from Gillette, Wyoming, which is just over the border. I think he's a little over 1,000 yards away from setting all-time record in passing yards at Chadron State. He's about 15 touchdowns away from setting the touchdown record. So he's got that extra year because of COVID. So he played those 4 games last year, and then he's got an extra senior year. We got Cole Thurnis, he's got a lot of All-American teams behind his name as a receiver, as a slot receiver for us, kind of a hybrid. Not really a tight end, but we can play him at wing and do some different things with him. He's a phenomenal athlete, and he's one of the biggest compliments I can give him is he's like the strength team USA All-American, which isn't like divided by levels. That's D1 to D3.
Wow.
So he's getting that 6th year. We have all of our O-line back. We have all the rest of the receiving core back. We got a couple kids who opted out last fall that decided to come back and play in the spring and got those scrimmages in the spring who are going to be impact players for us offensively. So we feel real good. I think we had 3 total kids that decided not to take that extra year.
Right.
One was going to be a 7-year senior, and I think he said, you know what, I think I might need to go join the real world.
Right.
One was
understandable.
One was a backup O lineman who was a good player for us, but he's now GAing for us because that GA spot came open.
Very nice.
And then the other one was a tight end who he went out and joined the working force, and he thought about maybe after the spring, if he didn't like working, he might come back and take some master's classes. But so we only lost 3 guys, and then we were on a very Chadron State is a very neat school. The community, the college cares about athletics. We're a small program. We're a small college. So the college understands the importance of athletics and funds us very well, puts us in a good position. And they, with the whole scholarship thing with D2, the problem is, if I don't lose any scholarship players, how am I going to go get a freshman class?
Right.
And our school said, don't worry about it. We'll make it work. Go do it. And so we went out and signed, and we got some very good incoming freshmen who I feel like are probably above we wouldn't have got if it wasn't for that.
Wow.
And some of those schools not having scholarship money. And so we went out and signed some what I feel is a very talented class, and some guys that are going to have a chance to come in and make an impact for us right away on both offense and defense. So
that's awesome. And I'll definitely, I'm all about this podcast. I love getting the smaller programs out there and getting the names out there, and I'll definitely be rooting you guys on. Of course, all the listeners, of course, on the live stream, and whether you listen to it on the podcast tonight or in the near future. Of course, Coach Smith actually played. It's your alma mater. How does that feel knowing actually coaching your alma mater?
It's awesome, man. Uh, I grew up in this area. I grew up in Chadron. I went to high school in Chadron. I got recruited to go a couple other places and went on some trips to some other, a couple walk-on opportunities and Division II opportunities. And just when I left and went there, I felt like everybody has that stigma of I don't want to stay home and go to my hometown school. And then but when I came up here, I felt like it was a separate part of the town, but also I still had the same amenities that I had growing up. And I had the same, the people in Chadron love it. When I played, I think we had Highway 20 runs right through Chadron, and within 90 miles west, 90 miles east, I think there's about 13 or 14 of us that were from Highway 20.
Wow.
Not quite that much anymore. It's not like that anymore.
Right.
But back then it was. And so I got to play with a lot of guys that I played against in high school. And then, just this opportunity, this is my 13th or 12th or 13th year of going in college coaching. And when this opportunity came open, I was, I'm like, yeah, man, that's what I want to do. I want to go back and I want to help out somewhere that helped me so much grow up as a person and become a better person. Not only the town, I felt like I owed the town something. I felt like I owed the college something. And when this opportunity came, that's my way to help back and my way to give back. Because a lot of people don't understand it, but as a small division coach or starting out in coaching, you don't make a lot of money,
right?
And, so you're not helping your school or your alma mater by throwing money back at them. So my way to do it was to come back and try to put us in a spot to win some more conference championships and put ourselves highly ranked in the nation and have a chance maybe make the playoffs and make a run at it. So.
Very nice, and I love when coaches stay at the alma mater. I know you spent some time elsewhere, but of course, I'm sure when the job was opening, I'm sure that was your dream job, so to speak, to be at your alma mater.
Yep. And another one is our head coach played here, our D coordinator played here, our special teams coordinator played here. I played here. Our wide receivers coach, who is our recruiting coordinator, he didn't play here, but he played at a school from the north who's in our conference. I won't say their name. But he then came down here and GA'd here, so he's a de facto member of the Eagle family. So
very, very nice. Is the team from the north a rival? Is that why? Is not to mention, have you mentioned it? Just kind of curious.
They could call it a rivalry.
Love it. Of course, you guys are part of the Rocky Mountain Athletic Conference, NCAA D2. Tell all the listeners about the conference that may not be familiarized with it, and kind of, I guess, get the feel of it.
Yeah, it's a really good conference. I think this might be wrong. If anybody listens to this and wants to say that I'm wrong, I might be wrong. But I think it's the oldest conference in the country.
Very nice. I like that.
It started off and it was like Utah, Colorado, like all them bigger schools, and then they kind of, when the bigger stuff came out, they started branching off. But it's mostly based out of Colorado. I think 6 or 7 of our conference teams are in Colorado. There's one of us in Nebraska. There's 2 in South Dakota, and then there's 1 in New Mexico. And so we have, and our guys, one of the things that people, when they try to recruit against us and tell us, when we recruit against other conference schools and stuff like that, they try to talk about the travel of our conference and stuff. And I love it. You get on a bus. We take 2 buses. We get on the bus. You take your long road trips. Our guys can get their homework done. I can catch up on some sleep that I probably haven't gotten in a while. I got 2 little girls, a 3-year-old and an 8-month-old. So when I get a chance to sleep, I sleep.
I feel you. I know that feeling.
Yep. Binge watch some TV shows. So I love the travel that we do, and we get to go to some cool places. We go to Gunnison, Colorado, which is the highest stadium in the country. I know what the elevation of it is, but it's way up there. We go to Fort Lewis in Durango, Colorado, and that's probably one of the most gorgeous areas in the country. And So there's a lot of cool things that we get to do that our guys get a chance to do. A lot of our guys that come from out of state, from California or Florida, or we got a couple of those southern guys. They've never been to the Rocky Mountains, and probably maybe never will have a chance to go to the Rocky Mountains, and that affords them that chance. We get them up there, way up there in the Rockies, and so it's
I like that.
It's an awesome chance to just kind of see a different part of the country for a lot of these kids. And like I said, we count it as a blessing that we get we get some of those road trips that we get.
That's really awesome. Now I kind of wish that I'm graduated, be 15 years now out of high school. I wish I would have heard about you guys.
Yeah.
No, I like the family feel. It sounds like it's a family feel. And of course, my question, I guess not really so much of a question, but more curiosity is, you mentioned all the coaches. It's their alma mater as well. Did you guys by chance play with? Did any of you play together by chance?
No. So Coach Long, our head coach, he played here in '95 to '99.
Gotcha.
And then I was 03 to the 07. Coach Sassy and Coach Furry, our D coordinator, our special teams coordinator, they're the late ones. They played here, I want to say, around about that 2010 to 14 era. So those two played together, but me and Coach Long never played with them. So
when it comes to scheduling, especially the D2 level, do you guys, obviously now because of COVID and everything else, budget wise, money wise, I completely understand, it's tight and you got to watch. As in the past, was it always you try to get your teams closest together, just trying to make a schedule of it, or would you guys actually try to make it to like a University of Central Oklahoma, who's a D2 program or stuff like that?
The weird thing now with scheduling is that a lot of D2s close their conference scheduling.
Right.
And for me, for being in our situation, we're not closed because we are at, I believe, 10 teams. So we play 9 different conference games and 2 non-conference games. That hurts us as a conference because one of our natural rivalries was always University of Nebraska Kearney and Kearney State. So those Kearney people that want to watch it, you're still Kearney State. And so when we played, and so that was an easy, nice 5-hour drive. Really good crowd. Atmosphere was always crazy, but then they left the RMAC and went and joined the MIAA, which closed their conference schedule. So that makes it hard on us to find a non-conference game. So what we do now is we'll take one of those FCS money games. A lot of years. We didn't take one this year, but next year we'll go to Dixie State in St. George, Utah. But the closed conference scheduling makes it hard, and to where our head coach says this, and I think I looked it up too to see because I couldn't believe it. But our closest team that we can play Division II that's not in closed conference scheduling is in Kansas City, Missouri. And
wow,
that's like a 11-hour drive.
Right.
And so that's one thing that makes it hard. But with our conference schedule, we just kind of try to find whoever wants to play, and whether that be FCS, Montana State, Montana, those Montana schools, Northern Colorado. We're the kind of school, like I said, we kind of we're blue collar. Like we don't care who you are, we'll play you.
I like that.
And that's anybody that wants to play. We had one of the teams we're supposed to play this year. COVID screwed up the scheduling, and they wanted to do something, and we wanted to do something else. And we had a couple schools that had open dates that were calling on us, and Angelo State was one of those schools. And they're like, "Hey, you guys want to? We'll come to you. Come to us next year." We're like, "Yep, let's do it." That's fine with us. And so the scheduling is a hard thing for us, but it also another thing. It goes back to the same thing is we get to go to Texas. We get to take a lot of Nebraska, Colorado, Wyoming kids to Texas that might never go to Texas before again in their life. And so that's a blessing to us to also kind of have to find these out of the box teams to play.
I like that, and kind of keep of course talking conference. Of course, I have to ask, just kind of get your opinion on it. What's your thoughts on not so much the NIL, but all the conference realignment? I know we're talking FBS, but do you could potentially see when we might be down to more super conferences than what the SEC is going to be like?
I think so. I really do. I like all college football. I enjoy it. My brother played at Purdue University, And so I'm a Big
Very
Ten fan.
nice.
And most of my family's from Illinois. I was born in Illinois, and then my dad moved out here when I was 2. So I was always a Big Ten fan. Both my uncles played at University of Wisconsin, and but I do see that, you know, gearing towards more becoming bigger super conferences,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't know if I like it or not. I was kind of hoping to see kind of an expanded playoff and maybe see a little bit more. Maybe give the Power Fives, give them all, you know, let the conference championship from each of those win in and have 3 at-larges or whatever it would be. And kind of maybe give one of those smaller schools a little chance, the one whoever is the best, a chance to, you know, get in there and duke it out with them. But I think with the way it's going, they're probably not going to expand the playoff now with the way the conferences are starting to adjust and realign. I mean, I think one of our coaches yelled down the hall that USC now is possibly going to join the Big Ten or something like that. It was one of the rumors.
That's what I heard on our local. Yeah. Yep.
I'm like, come on now. Like a Big Ten school in California, that don't make no sense. But I think, you know, like with the way the world's going and putting more power in the athletes' hands, you want to try to get your kids the most exposure that you can get them. And if, you know, Oklahoma and Texas feel like going to the SEC is the way to do that, then, you know, good for them for doing it. And don't get me wrong, that's going to put a pretty penny in both Oklahoma and Texas's pocket. So,
oh yes,
I don't think Texas A&M likes it very much, though.
Definitely. I'm not going to say what radio station sports-wise local you should listen to, but when you get a chance, definitely listen. It's pure entertainment, especially Aggie fans calling in, and you know, of course, I'm a Sooner fan, and you know, I'm excited, but at the same time, you know, the changes talking about, you know, Big 12. I'm used to Big 12. My dad's Nebraska fan. I'm not for sure how that evened out. I think my grandpa was, so I think he kind of just took and ran with it, even though my dad graduated from Nebraska or from Oklahoma, but nonetheless, you know, it's going to be interesting, of course, especially with the Pac-12 potentially expanding again. The Big Ten, I've heard Kansas and I don't know who else they may go after.
I think Iowa State was one of the ones, which Iowa State would make sense. I mean, to jump in there with Iowa and they already play each other, and that's a natural rivalry. So,
you know, Matt Campbell's done a phenomenal job recruiting and coaching. I think that would be I could see him really doing well up there. And of course, the ACC, I know West Virginia's potentially, but looking back at 2020, and almost everybody that came on the show, I've asked this question, so it's nothing I know. Probably the listeners are probably like, oh, here we go again. But you look at 2020 for a lot of people's different stories. You know, my dad had a major stroke that he suffered in April. So unfortunately, you know, since then he hasn't been doing well. And of course, weeks in the hospital that we couldn't go see because of COVID. Looking back at 2020, of course, hopefully nothing's changed. Will change since then. But what has 2020 taught you personally as we hopefully recover from that?
Well, first off, I'm sorry to hear about your dad, man. You know, that's rough, and especially having to spend time in the hospital and not being able to see family. That sucks, and there ain't much else you can say about that. But the biggest thing about 2020, and I've always considered myself pretty good at persevering through things. Mm-hmm. And I think 2020 pushed that to me, pushed that for me, pushed that for our kids, pushed that for everybody. And it shows people that you got a lot more strength in you than you think. And as long as you just keep going and keep plugging along, and no matter what somebody may try to do to you from an outside source, and or no matter what a virus may try to do to us from an outside source, something that you can't control. And one of the biggest things that all of our kids hear me say on the sideline a lot of the time is, it is what it is.
Yep.
And, you know, like, just, you can't control what you can't control, man. I got to control my controllables. And so that's, we preach that to our kids. And 2020 has kind of been a big pushing stone for that of, hey, man, I don't get to play this week because I'm quarantined because I was a close contact. Mm-hmm. Man, it is what it is. You know, do quarantine, get your grades up, do what you can, do push-ups, do sit-ups, and then when you get back, let's go. So that's probably been the biggest thing for me at 2020.
Yeah, and I know my wife would probably say patience because, you know, virtual school really kicked in. At least I know for sure. I think across the country, I'm pretty sure it did. I know here in Oklahoma it really did. So I know patience will be definitely one, especially when you have a middle schooler that thinks he knows everything.
Oh, it gave me a bigger appreciation from my wife having to when we
Yep.
were working from home, and
Yep.
I had to see what she goes through every day with our
Yeah.
with our two girls, and so but uh, she's a saint. So
Oh, most definitely. And being grateful. A buddy of mine, we always hang out from time to time. He's a host of a Defining Moments podcast, and hey, he always makes me realize that there's bigger and better things out there, but at the end of the day, family's there for you. And I can tell you one thing: 2020, I think pushed my patience, but I think in the end, it's gonna be rewarded one way or another.
oh yeah,
But speaking of, I know people are like, well, that's a serious conversation back to football, but don't get me wrong. At the end of the day, there's bigger things in life than just sports. But nonetheless, you look at the Big Ten, and I know Tanner Lee is a buddy of mine that's been on the show. He's a Big Ten guy. Who would you looking at Oklahoma State? I know locally here it's been mentioned potentially Oklahoma State. Of course, I'm going to be a little biased against OSU, but I know there's a certain criteria that you have to meet, that AAU academic stuff, and that's way above my own expertise.
Oh, yeah,
but looking at OSU, could you see them potentially be in the Big Ten, or do you think it's strictly going to look like a Kansas-Iowa State combination?
I would like to. I think Oklahoma State Big Ten would be awesome. They bring a new flair to the Big Ten. Like that's COVID. During COVID hit, I told our head coach, I'm like, hey, I'm gonna start growing my hair out, and he goes, well, show me your coach with his hair growing out, and so I pulled a picture of Mike Gundy. So Mike Gundy's my spirit animal. So so I love it. Like that guy. I think what he does for his kids, and you can see he's got a true passion for
absolutely
the student athlete. And the kids that play for him. And I don't know if it's true, but people said he opened a bar in town down there in Stillwater so that his kids had a place to go.
I wouldn't be surprised, honestly. He's a good family guy. I wouldn't be surprised.
So seeing them go there would bring a new flair. The Big Ten's kind of starting to get a new flair to it, but it's still the Big Ten. You watch Ohio State last year, and this is one thing that when I watched them play last year is when it came down to the nitty gritty, Ohio State may have wanted to look like they wanted to throw the ball over the place, but when it came down to it, they were gonna punch it at you, and they were gonna physically impede themselves on you and make sure that they pushed you around if they got into trouble anywhere or something like that. So the Big Ten is still the Big Ten, and if you bring a little flair to it, like Oklahoma State, I think that'd be a fun show to watch.
Excuse me. What was I going to ask? Now I totally forgot. Speaking of Big Ten, that's what it was. Of course, you're in Nebraska. You're actually the first person from Nebraska I've interviewed. So,
all right.
I like Nebraska. I miss the OU Nebraska. I won't lie, but I do know that Nebraska's coming down here this year. Obviously, you're being in Nebraska. What's the vibe, the feel of the University of Nebraska and the program that's, let's be honest, has struggled for quite a while? What's the vibe there, and is Scott Frost really on the hot seat, do you think?
One thing that it's probably gonna surprise everybody, but I'm not a Nebraska fan. It don't surprise anybody that knows me. My dad was the head coach at Chadron State from 1987 to 2004. And so growing up, I D2 Chadron State was all I cared about. And then back in the day, Nebraska had the walk-on program, and my dad would always, complain a little bit, like, "Oh, Nebraska's just stealing guys. It'd be great players for us." And so I think that got drilled into me over time.
I love that. I love that.
So I'm not the biggest Nebraska fan, but now my wife, she is on the other hand. She loves Nebraska, and now that I've gotten older, I have nothing against Nebraska, and I watch them and cheer for them with her. And when they're struggling, I do grind it into her a little bit, and she's not a fan of that. But it's one of those things to where I feel like Scott Frost, he kind of he got labeled the savior,
right? And
a lot of people don't understand that in this profession, it's not that easy to just come in and just flip something, and to get kids to buy in, and you can tell everybody, whoever you want, that hey, this guy's going to do it, and blah blah blah, but at the end of the day, everybody's still got to put the work in, and not saying that their staff doesn't. I know their staff works extremely hard. I have a buddy that works with their program. We had one of our alumni that was in their strength program, and he talks about it. But at the end of the day, so is everybody else.
Right.
Yep. And to say Scott Frost is on the hot seat, the way people talk about him around here, I can't believe that he's on the hot seat. But I've seen a lot weirder things in this profession. I've seen guys with really good records get fired.
Yes.
And I think I had a conversation with somebody not too long ago about, you can, in coaching, you have to walk a fine line between, do I aggressively go after what I want? People consider me to be arrogant or egotistical, but I need to get this to be successful in my program, or do I kind of get pushed over and allow for my program not to get what it needs to be successful? And you have to walk that fine line. And as long as you're winning, you can be whoever you want as long as you're winning.
Yes.
But if you're winning and then you have a bad year, you see that nowadays with some of these ADs that have coaches that they don't get along with, and that guy has a good track record, and then he's fired because one bad year, but he had rubbed somebody the wrong way within the administration. And so, with Scott Frost, he does a really good job in the community. He does a really good job with the Nebraska alumni. I can't speak for his relationship with the administration, but it seems like he's got a really good relationship with the administration. And I think overall, the people in Nebraska, as long as you stay off Twitter and other social medias, the people in Nebraska are going to be patient with him and kind of try to let him build it the way that he wants to build it. And so to say he's on the hot seat, I don't think he is. But like I said, I've seen weirder things.
And it's interesting that you brought that up, social media. And of course, nowadays, I think we live on social media. I'm pretty sure, from politicians to presidents to governors, it doesn't matter really. And even, our own, on-air personality, social media is practically our go-to when it comes to news, and now you can watch things and so on and so forth. Is there anything that you guys tell your players about social media, kind of like, especially when it gets close to game day? I'm sure, block out the noise, cancel the noise, what have you, or you guys just tell your players, hey, just watch yourself on there?
We tell them be smart. Not only when, and this is and where sometimes people don't kind of understand about collegiate sports, and whether it be football, basketball, whatever. For these kids, this is a job. When you're on scholarship, it's like having a job. And if me as a person, as an employee at Chadron State, whatever I put on Twitter doesn't only represent me, but it represents Chadron State also.
Yes, sir.
And so so we tell our kids is like, make sure that, hey, before you post something, make sure you read it, make sure you read it again, make sure you read it again, and then delete it, and then sit and think about it. And then if you still want to type it, type it. But just kind of taking that step back, because that's the difference between nowadays and the old days. Is you used to not be able to just spout off whatever you wanted at the spur of the moment and have everybody else know what you're saying. But now people, within 5 seconds, you can put out something that can, hurt you for the rest of your life, hurt your teammates, hurt people you care about. And it's something that, as a lot of people have found out, you can't take it back. The internet is not a friendly place for taking stuff back.
No, not at all. And I know a lot of people unfortunately abuse it, but at the same time, I think you can use it and like you said, as long you got to rethink it, because not just coaches and all that, but if my employer, if happens to see, if I happen to go on this and rant, and my boss, I don't know if they're on Twitter or not, but if they do, then hey, guess what? Or, maybe not just my boss, but the vice president of the company's like, hold up, wait a minute. For some reason, he's Skyped up in my timeline, and hey, so-and-so, I need you to go talk to Michael because we got some issues. But
but it can, like you said, it can be used for good too. I go on there every day, and you see stories that never would have got to me because it's not covered by something, or it's not pushed out there to people, and you see all them stories, just, I guess it would technically be like a heartfelt story about somebody doing something the right way and doing something right for people. And, I spend a lot of time on Twitter recruiting. That's a huge thing for us now. But also when I scroll through it, if I see something that kind of motivationally charges me up, I share it with all of our players, and I put that on there, and I say, hey guys, like this is something to think about as you're winding down summer workouts or whatever it may be. So
Going back to your coaching days, or I shouldn't say going back to coaching days. I make it sound like you're retired. Going back to your coaching ranks, you started off at Wayne State College. Obviously, again, I don't know where that's at in Nebraska, but walk us through. How long after you graduated did you land your first job at Wayne State, and kind of walk us from there.
Yeah, so when I finished playing. I was I guess what technically would have been my the spring ball after my redshirt freshman year. So I played my redshirt freshman year, and then that spring ball after I tore my ACL, and so I didn't get to play the next fall, and so I had planned on taking a medical hardship there and playing the 6th year, and then when I got to what was my 5th year, what technically would have been my senior year, my last year. In the I think 4th or 5th game of the year, I blew my ACL, MCL, and PCL in the game.
Ooh.
Yeah, and so after that, I kind of made the decision, made the business decision. It's probably time for me to go join the coaching force and get out of playing. But how I had set my schedule up was to graduate that next fall, and so when I didn't, I came back that next fall and I worked at the high school level at Chadron High, where I went to high school at. The head coach was my D coordinator when I played. And so I went there and helped work with the offense there for 1 year. And then I went and GA'd at Wayne State that following spring. And I was the wide receivers GA. And probably one of the greatest experiences of my coaching profession was that, because I know a lot. Everybody wanted to coach. Everybody wants a D1 GA. If that's what your dream is to do as coaches, you want to go be a D1 GA after you're done playing. And I had, a possibility at a couple different places that fell through because coaches left and things like that, at some other bigger universities. And then Wayne was sitting there, and I was like, all right, let's go do this. And why it was so special for me was because it was our offensive coordinator, our O-line GA, me as the wide receivers GA, and a volunteer running backs coach was the 4 offensive coaches. Wow. And I got to work for a guy who was a high school legend in Nebraska. His name's Gene Sir. He's won, I don't know how many state titles he's won now, but he was an old Green Beret, fought in Vietnam. He was kind of a crusty old guy, but he told you how it was. He told you what he wanted, and he taught me a lot about coaching, about how dealing with kids. I was 23 years old coaching kids that were 21, and kind of differentiating between a friendship and being a coach. There's that fine line between that. Not saying you don't want to be their friend, but you can't be a friend and only a friend. And so he taught me a lot there, and that helped me a lot. And then after 2 years there, I went to Wabash College in Indiana, in Crawfordsville, Indiana, just south of West Lafayette, actually, about 30, 40 minutes south of West Lafayette.
Very nice.
That was a D3 school. I learned a lot about recruiting there, because D3 recruiting, it ain't no joke. It's a lot of time on the phone. It's a lot of time recruiting kids, because you got to throw a wide net because you're not offering athletic scholarships. And then I had very fortunate to go there because I worked for a good staff, and we were successful. We won our conference. I think we lost to Mount Union in the semis or the quarters that year. I can't remember which one it was. But we lost to them by 12, I think. And then after that, I went out to Fort Lewis College in Durango, Colorado for 2 years as the wide receivers coach. My second year, they fired our head coach after my first year, and they hired John L. Smith. And wow. I don't know. I'm sure a lot of your listeners know who John L. is. Maybe some of the younger ones don't.
Wow.
But I got to work with John L. for a year, and that was a great experience. I mean, he had so much.
I was about to ask you, how was that experience working with Coach Smith?
Oh, it was great. That man got more one-liners than I've ever heard somebody say in their life. But he taught me a lot about, reaching out to kids. I mean, he was at Michigan State, Louisville, Idaho, Arkansas. I'm sure he had another Weber State. I'm sure he probably had another head coach somewhere, but I mean, and all those programs were very successful when he left. And so working with him was awesome. He taught me a lot. And then the year after, after 2 years there, I got the chance to go to Eastern Illinois and work at the Division I level for 5 years. I bounced around between coaching wideouts and tight ends. Kind of when I first got hired, they hired me as a wide receivers coach, and then like 4 days later, a guy named T.D. Woods, who was a receivers coach at Tulane, Ole Miss, had some really good experience through his career. I think he was all-time leading receiver at Tennessee for a while also. He got hired, and they're like, hey, this guy's got 25 years of coaching wideouts. Would you mind moving to tight ends? I was like, no, I'm good. I will do that because that's probably better for my career anyways.
Right.
And then, but I was a tight ends, wide receiver, co-special teams coordinator for a few years. And that tight end move for me was the best move I ever made in my coaching career. I got the chance to work with some really good O-line coaches, Mike Markison, who was the O-line coach at Arkansas and Ole Miss and Wisconsin. He went up to Canada after he was done with me, so I got to work with him for 1 year. And then I got to work with a guy that you probably know the name, Mark Hudson.
Oh, yes.
Yes, the old Fumblerooski.
Yep.
Old Marky Fumblerooski, man.
Yep.
And to this day, Mark Hudson is, besides my father, Mark Hudson is my biggest coaching mentor that I have. He kind of, when I coached tight ends, Coach Markson was great to learn technique and stuff like that from. But the kind of mixing the tight end in, he was kind of very geared towards his five. But when Coach Hudson came to Eastern Illinois, he had been with the Raiders for 3 years as the tight ends coach. And so he kind of understood that struggle of sometimes an O-line coach is just geared to their five. And so he really took me under his wing, and he really helped me out. And that guy made the biggest impact in my life in coaching, besides my father. And then I got to work with Coach Uparesa, who is another long time. I think Coach Uparesa is the first Polynesian ever playing in the NFL for the Raiders.
Yep.
And then he was coached at Hawaii, USC, UNLV. So I got 5 years of working with these great O-line coaches and starting to understand. If you'd asked me what type of O coordinator I was 8 years ago, before I got to Eastern and coach tight ends, I'd have told you I'm gonna throw that thing every down, man.
That's my style.
And just let's let it rip. Yeah, we're gonna throw it 65 times a game, and throw 15 screens. That's the run game.
Yep.
So work with those guys was awesome. And then in my 5th year, I worked with Scott Parr, who is the head coach at Navarro now. And he GA'd for Coach Leach at Texas Tech. And so he brought the air raid. And, it was like one of those things where we were very kind of complex my first 4 years at Eastern. And then we went to the air raid. And not to call the air raid dumb, but the air raid is a very simplified,
yes, it is,
bare bones. And so I went from one thing to another, and that's just another growing part of me that was like, oh, maybe I don't have to be that complex to where I can base everything down a little bit more. And so that was a great experience for me. And then I went to the beautiful state of North Dakota for 7 months, and the winters are, woo. Hey, I thought Nebraska.
I've heard they're rough up there.
I thought Nebraska was cold, and then I moved to North Dakota for 7 months. And Coach Long called me. It's about setting up an interview time for the Shadow State job when I was up there in Mayville. And I'm walking outside, and he's FaceTiming me, and I'm walking outside, and he goes, "It looks cold." And I go, "Yeah, it's pretty cold." I go, "Hold on a second." I got up on a snowdrift. I stood on a snowdrift, and the stop sign was below my hip.
Wow.
And so, but that working in Mayville was awesome too. Just the community, the small program, and then just kind of having access to North Dakota State and North Dakota and those places like that up there, because you're only about 45 minutes from each. And then after Mayville, I got here at Chadron. And so, I'm very blessed with my journey because I've been to so many different places. I think I did a coaches clinic in Wyoming about a week ago, and I taught, and I kind of broke down all my stuff. And when I was doing my presentation for it, I think I worked for 7 different head coaches and 7 different O coordinators in my 10 years before I became my own before I became the O coordinator. And so what I do offensively, everybody, I get when I first got hired here, like, well, what style of offense are you? And I'm like, I like to score points. I don't
Mm-hmm.
really know what to call it or say it is because it is a little mix of everything.
Yep. Yeah, and a lot of people always say, "Well, why don't you ask the coach what kind of style he likes to run?" I'm like, no, I like to keep it off limits just because I don't want the other opponents to potentially try to. I'm not asking for every play, but you know, I was going to ask you, and you brought that up, was who was your biggest mentor, especially, and um, how much of an impact he played on you? And I think a lot of people we get to the biggest level, and I shouldn't say a lot, but I know a few that's in the coaching ranks right now, and you just don't you don't hear much about the stories of where they began.
Yeah.
You always hear the well, I got here and I got here. It's always the I, and I think at the end of the day, I think we forget where we come from, and I think that's why I really enjoy talking to you because at the end of the day, you're back where you started from. I think that's really neat.
Yeah, and that's it's never been about where I got to. It's always been about where people have gotten me to.
Yep.
Creating those relationships. This profession has got a lot of personalities in it, and all those personalities aren't always going to match. But I'm a firm believer in as long as I do what I'm supposed to do and I do my job to the best of my capabilities and maybe above my capabilities, that what I do speaks for itself. And every time I've ever called somebody I've worked for and said, hey, I need a reference, can you write it for me? Even if maybe I didn't leave there with the best personal relationship of, outside of the office, every single time I've ever done it, those people have been more than willing to do it for me. And I'm the same way with the guys that I'm now in a position where we have 5 GAs on staff, or six GAs. We have 6 GAs on staff. And I tell them all, like, look, you guys we don't have to get along on a personal level or whatever, but as long as you come in, I'm not saying that I get along on a personal level with all of them, but if I don't, for some whatever reason, as long as they're out there doing what they're supposed to be doing and, getting their job done, at the end of the day, if somebody calls on them and wants a reference, I'm more than happy to do that because that's what this profession is about. As long as and the main thing for me when a GA comes to me and says, hey, I want a reference for a job, the main thing is that I think that you have the best interests of the student athlete in mind when you get into this profession. And it's not about me, it's about them because I'm nothing without our players. So
excuse me, and going to that, and what would be a question that someone that let's just say, for example, little Johnny comes up to you, say, hey, Coach Smith, never played football, but I'm really into I would love to get into coaching. What would you say to the person that doesn't have an experience but yet wants to get into coaching, and then to the person that has experience that wants to get into coaching? How would you approach them about how to get their foot in the door, or at least where to start from?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is just to kind of sit yourself down or ask yourself, where do you want to be? What do you want to do? And throughout my career, I've kind of had to do that with myself. Do I want to keep when I was younger, my whole dream was chase the D1 dream, go be a D1 coach, try to do that. And, as you start to do that, and then I had a family and I kind of had to take a step back again from that. I had to figure out, and not saying I don't spend less time at Division II. It just gives you the more capability to be around family at Division II at the lower level. And so that's kind of the path I took because I wanted that opportunity to be around my family. And my dad worked at the Division II level for so many years, and he was always able to go to my games, and he was able to coach my baseball teams and my basketball teams, even though most of the time he said he was the coach, and then he had his players take over the duties of coaching it. So, but and so the biggest thing is figure out what you want to do. Where do you want to go with it? Because there's stories of guys who have zero coaching experience and have gone to NFL offices and just said, hey, I'll do whatever you want me to do right now until, you see that I'm a hard worker and I can work my way up. There's stories like that all the time. I can't remember wasn't it the 49ers head coach there?
Yep.
His story was very similar to that, lived in his car and basically interned for free. And, and then there's and then there's the stories of, or do you want to coach high school?
Yep.
Go reach out to your local high school and just say, hey, I'll do whatever. I'll volunteer. I'll work hard. And, in the future, if you see fit for me to, make some money doing this, then awesome. If you're a college student and that's what you want to do, you want to get into coaching, I highly recommend going to your head coach's office. Now, some places that's a little harder than here.
Right.
Coach Lawton's office is open all the time, and about anybody can walk in there to him. So,
very nice.
But and just say, hey, I'd like to be a student assistant and do whatever it may take to do that. And then when I was at Eastern Illinois, we had a young man who was in I taught techniques of football coaching at Eastern Illinois, and he was in my class, and he came up and he said, hey, I'd really like to get into coaching. What can I do? And I said, well, start coming to practice. We'll put you to work, setting up bags, whatever it may be. We'll find work for you to do. And then he worked his way up with our O-line coach, and he was in charge of, doing all the O-line manual stuff and doing all the computer stuff that some of these older guys don't want to do. And I'm starting to get to that point where I don't even want to do the computer stuff. And I'm not even that old. I hope I'm not that old, but and he did a very good job with that. And then when our O-line coach left, that's it. I work with Mike Simmons too on the O-line at Eastern Illinois. He was at South Florida, UTEP. He's at UTEP now, but he's been at a bunch of different D1 places. And Mike was another really good influence on me. But Mike left to go to Northern Iowa, and the student assistant went with him to Northern Iowa as a GA. And then when Mike left Northern Iowa to go to UTEP, he left with him to go be a quality control at UTEP. And then after a few years of that grind that he was going through, he called me one day and he's like, hey, I think I'm going to go coach high school in Texas. I'm like, well, you're probably going to make more money than I am. So, probably a good choice. So now he's out in the Dallas area coaching at a high school in Dallas. But
that's awesome.
You just got to take that step and just go and reach out to somebody. And, we're us as a program, like any kid that wants to walk in here and says, hey, I'm a student here and I'd really like to, help you guys out in any way. Coaching is what profession I want to get into. We're down for it, and as long as you're going to work hard and do what you need to do, and we're going to be a recommendation for you. And there's a lot of them. Most of them we're a big education school, teacher school. So a lot of those people that want to be coaches, there's coaches from all over in this area in Wyoming, Nebraska, South Dakota, Colorado that are old alumni of Chadron State who, when they have something open, they're always calling us like, hey, do you guys have somebody who's education that wants to be a coach? And besides this year, because of COVID, we don't have many people graduate until later. Usually we have 7, 8 guys that are graduating. They're like, yeah, I got the perfect guy for you.
Chadron, I'm sure I hope I said it a little bit better than the first time.
You're getting there.
Getting there. By the end of this football season, I'll have it down pat.
All right.
What's the home game feel like leading up to kickoff? Community gets involved, school gets involved. What's the feel like on a Saturday morning or early afternoon or whatever the time may be for you guys to kick off at home? What's the feel like?
Oh, this place is awesome. This place gets rocking. We're very fortunate. Our facilities are top notch now. They've changed a lot since I played.
Very nice.
For sure. We got a whole brand new athletic building with a brand new arena in 2014. They built a brand new stadium in 18. We didn't have lights here when I played. And then in 18, when they built a new stadium, they put lights up. And so we get some night games and everything gets going, man. And it's the community is so supportive. You don't play. I play some schools in the RMAC, and I'm not going to say any names, but we'll go to some places where there's 500 people in the crowd, if that. But when you come play a home game at Chadron, it's going to be – the stands are going to be full, and it's going to be rocking. And, the tailgate's going to be rolling, and there's going to be families. I think we create such a family-like style here that the families, when they come here and their kids are playing, they all become really tight-knit group of families and friends. And so our families travel really well, no matter where we go. And we have a lot of kids from Colorado. So when we go down and play those Colorado games, we get a good showing there too. So it's, I don't think I'm being biased, and there's some places I've played at some places that are comparable, but on a Saturday night, Saturday night in, Saturday night out. Chadron State is, atmosphere wise, is better than no place. It's bar none, man.
I like that, and and of course, leading up to this season, is there one or a few games? What game is your eye catcher, the one that you're just looking forward to on this upcoming season, pending no weird things happen from now till the end of the year?
It's gonna be the corny response of there's two teams in our conference right now that are very good in and year out, and that's Colorado School of Mines and CSU Pueblo, who have both been highly ranked and won some playoff games the last whatever years. And so those games are always going to be big ones for us. But I think our conference as an overall, the RMAC kind of, when I played a little bit, was kind of like, everybody was like, oh, whoever wins the RMAC is just going to lose in the first round. And then my last 2 years of playing, we won our second round games and made it to the quarterfinals both those years. And everybody at the RMAC kind of was like, oh, okay. And then Pueblo brought back football, and then mine started getting better. And then, we're still here, and everybody. So the RMAC's got a lot more respect than it has in the past. That's because, and that's not because, and that's with those two teams, but also everybody else has gotten better in the conference. The scholarship limits have gone up in the conference, allowing teams to have more, to be on an equal playing field with the rest of the country. It's so every year that's just, there's anybody can beat anybody. Fort Lewis has probably the best track record against CSU Pueblo, and Fort Lewis had been finishing the bottom of the conference a lot of those years, but they, for whatever reason, they had Pueblo's number. And so, it kind of makes sure that everybody comes correct when you want to go play games. And we need to. And so when we get out there, the same thing I tell our kids is the same way that I truly believe, though, is we got to go one game at a time. And in Division II, it's a very, very costly to lose games. It's hard to make the playoffs when two lost teams don't make the playoffs in Division II a lot of times. And so you don't want to be and put yourself in that situation by having a down game. And so every game you got to be ready to play.
Very nice. And I know I appreciate taking your time out of your busy schedule. And final question, Coach, and I'll let you go on this one, is there a coach out there offensively, whether it's an offensive coordinator or an offensive coordinator that became a head coach, that you kind of admire from afar and kind of not so much get your offensive kind of belt around what they're doing, but anybody that kind of aspires you to kind of, I guess, just kind of, I hate saying just act after or be like, but anybody that you aspire to?
Oh yeah, there's lots of guys. This profession, everybody steals everything. We're all
right.
Like I'll find your film and I'll watch it and I'll figure out how to do something. Just like they would do to me. But a guy, Oklahoma right now with Lincoln Riley's a big one, man. Like the way that he is kind of he's kind of taken that air raid and adapted it to match kind of what it can be really, really successful. He's a big one. And then I'll go back to my spirit animal, man, Mike Gundy. There you go. He kind of like he's a lot of, if you ever meet somebody that knows me, they're going to tell you who I am. I'm a very passionate person about what I do. I'm very enthusiastic about what I do, but in the same sense, I'm a very laid back guy that when you meet me, you wouldn't even know that what my profession was.
Wow.
And so I think Mike Gundy kind of carries himself that way. So that's a guy that I still remember the I'm a man, I'm 40 speech, like right there.
Yep.
I'm a man, I'm 40. I'm creeping up on that. I'm creeping up on 40. So,
I'm almost there as well. I know the feeling. Final fun question for you, and then we'll let you go. If it's not coaching football during the off season, during the off season when you do have time, what do you like to do for fun?
Oh man, I'm a very below average golfer. I enjoy being on the water and being up at a lake or something like that. We didn't get much time this summer. It kind of worked out weird. We were back east at my wife's family for quite a bit. With some different family things, weddings and things like that. So, but I like being on the water. I like boating. I wouldn't say I'm an avid fisherman, but when I do get on the water, I like to fish.
Very nice.
And then I'm still active. I go out there and pull hamstrings playing slow pitch softball and hurt myself from doing things like that. I need to probably find a team that's got some younger guys on it so they quit playing me in the outfield. But yeah, man, I just like to try to stay active as much as possible. Spend time with my family, spend time with my girls. They're getting their 3-year-olds getting to that age where it's just run, chase.
Yep.
And she's starting to get active in more activities and things like that. So, that's how I like to spend my time. I like to be around family and just kind of just take every day, one day at a time, and let everything be. It is what it is, man.
Hey, I got to leave it at that. That's the best way to end the show.
I appreciate you, man, taking the time out of your day too. I like doing this stuff. I like just getting on there, promoting Chadron State because it is somewhere that I love, and promoting the sport of football. And I know there's a lot of people out there that are trying to make it a dying breed to still tackle people and be physical and violent. But all I can do to promote it, I'm out here for it.
I know one thing, Coach. If there's any way we can help promote Chadron State, there we go. I'm gonna leave it at that because I'm gonna butcher it the next time I say it. But is there any way we can help promote you guys to get the word out as we head into 2021 season?
Hey, just follow along with our Twitter accounts and stuff like that, and you see us post something that you like, retweet it, and like it, whatever it may be on whatever platform it is, and that's the way those kids are nowadays. They're staring at their phones all the time.
Oh,
so
yes.
If we get out there in front of more eyes and we get more people that are looking at our college, then that's better off for me.
Hey, I can definitely do that, and I got some vacation time I got to use up, so September's going to be booked for me, but October looks pretty open, so if there's a home game in October I can attend to, I may just have to hit you up. And
I got tickets for you, man.
I'll watch you guys and get that Nebraska feel.
All right, man.
Everyone, Coach Smith joining us on the Air Attack podcast. Coach, best of luck this season, and welcome back anytime you can get on.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
Hey, absolutely. You've been listening to the Air Attack podcast. Have a great week.